First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go along that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
okay,
an
he's good too.
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, girl, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hi there, welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Leonard Gildarie and Akash Prasad. This is a live program. We do not use Zoom and it's not pre-recorded. So whatever mistakes or fantasies that occur in the studio, in the program you will see it because it cannot be edited. This is a live program. Once again, thanks for being with us. Good night, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Our guest, it's good morning in London, and our guest is from London. Now let's tell you about our guest, a very interesting man. Before I describe him, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to ask him if he can, as much as possible, suppress his accent. So, he can speak to Guyanese in a more understandable English.
You're going to take away my cultural heritage.
I do find him to have an accent, and sometimes I miss a few words. But one of the interesting Guyanese, a Guyanese with a very interesting history. He was born in 1950, and he left Guyana when he was 10 and 11. And he went back with his parents. He went with his parents who went back to London, and he established a fantastic career as a Guyanese in journalism. This is a man who has written books and books and books on journalism, worked at the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, regarded as one of the most dispassionate, objective, and neutral media houses in the world. He will tell you all about that. And then he is a prolific author. We will show you at least some of the books that he has authored. We will bring them up to the screen. But I will now do the honors of introducing him. My co-host is Akash Prasad. And after the introduction, I will let Akash lead off with the origins of John MAIR, who wrote in the early 90s under the pen name of Bill Cotton Reform. And most people found his letters from 1993 onwards very interesting in the Chronicle and in the Starbuck News. He has a way of shaping his words that makes you find him and his production funny. But outside of that, he's a very committed senior journalist. And I don't know if I'm right, but in terms of the region, he was born in Guyana, probably the longest serving Caribbean journalist in the world. I don't know. He will correct me if there is other journalists from the Caribbean.
Trevor Phillips is longer serving.
But he just told me this.
Sir Trevor Phillips.
He just told me there's someone who have pipped him.
Yeah.
But let's introduce the unusual but enduring personality of Guyanese John MAIR. Bill Cotton or John MAIR, what should I call you?
Freddie, choose whatever you want to.
Because you have a likeness about your character.
Character?
That makes me, or personality.
Yeah.
That makes me want to call you Bill.
You call me what you like. I do not mind. You know, an older generation will actually call me Bill.
Akash, let's take John through the journey of birth in Guyana and then Exodus.
Well, first of all, if you gentlemen will permit me, it is an honor to be sitting in this chair right here with whom I think are two of Guyana's most iconic media personalities and journalists. And I say that without any
No, go on. Move from there. I can't match John MAIR. Can you move on?
No, I must give my
Speak about John.
Yes.
Checks in the post.
Yes, I have to say.
Please speak about John.
Yeah, but
go on. Speak about John.
You were born here from what I
was born in the public hospital.
Yeah, 1950.
1950, August 1950.
I want to ask you a little bit about, and I know you left in the early 60s to go to England, where you studied, yeah?
No, I went to yes. I mean, I'm born in the sugar state. I'm a child of sugar.
Wow.
I was brought up in Providence and Peters Hall. Yasir Prasad's house in Peters Hall. We lived in for a while.
Could you tell me a little bit about you growing up on that, remembering the plantation and all that?
Idyllic. You know, everything was provided for you. Yeah. Somebody came around once a week with salt, sugar, toilet paper. You know, my father went to work at 4 a.m, and then came back at early afternoon, and that was his day, and he'd go out on horseback. But it was idyllic life because you were in a compound of senior staff, so like-minded people. But I and my family were unusual. We actually quite often crossed the East Bank Road to Herstellin, to what you guys would call a logie.
Logie.
We crossed to go and see people who worked for us or whatever, to see them at home. Why not? Well, that was unusual on the sugar estate.
What are some of the fond memories you have as a boy growing up in Guyana that you've always cherished in your heart? You always seem to remember, probably put a smile on your face at times.
You should know that I went to Sacred Heart school, and next door to me for 5 years was one Charles Ramson.
Oh,
Senior.
Charles Ramson Senior.
Charles Ramson Senior. Bonnie Ramson. Bonnie Ramson. Him and I went from year 2 to year 4 to year 6 together. Always together. We're still friends. I'll see him tomorrow. So that was a memory. I mean, he was a smart ass then. He's a smart ass now.
Were you the kind of boy growing up, John, that would have going and climbing trees and picking mangoes and all of that? The typical Guyanese.
I remember looking for crabs on the riverside, putting my hand down the things to find crabs, and then I'm the youngest of 4, so I was often taken along and quite often beaten up as well by my sisters. It's idyllic. And every day you got the bus to Georgetown to go to school, picked you up, brought you home. What's to beat it?
And when you would have left to go to England, was there like a culture shock?
Well, before that, I took the common entrance. Before I left, and I did come top in all of British Guyana.
Wow! Which
I'm very proud of. And young Ramson, old Ramson, says to me, "Look, you might have come top, but I'm a general and you are not." this is all right. So I would have gone to Queen's College for 7 years, free.
Okay.
Well, I threw it up. My parents were moving.
Oh.
So I went to an English grammar school instead. And I sometimes think what it would have been like to have gone to Queen's.
Yes.
Because, I probably would have been a lot more disciplined than I was. and I probably would have learned a lot more. You remember Walter Ramsay?
Yeah.
You know, I once said to him, Walter, I would have had a major scholarship to come to Queen's. He said, and what would he have been like? He said, you would have been a Brahmin to us, a Brahmin. I mean, a Brahmin to Walter Ramsay. So, I mean, some of me wishes I'd stayed, but it wasn't my choice. But if I'd stayed, I'd probably be a lawyer.
Okay.
And rather than a journalist, you know, because I probably learned to argue for money, which is all lawyers do. Yes. So English, and I didn't actually come back until '69. I think I came back for a holiday to see some family and lived in Wales. And then after Cheddi got in, I came back regularly. And in fact, I came back to try and sort out GTV and failed.
And failed.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the 6 o'clock news I invented. And I invented it because the news used to start at 7:30, 8:15, 5:15. I said, look, 6 o'clock is 6 o'clock. Wherever you are in the world, that's what time the news is going to be. And it's still there. It usually starts at 6 o'clock. But I sort of moved against state-run broadcasting anyway. I'm not sure it's a good idea. But and I used to come back regularly to work for Moses Nagamutu. Remember him?
Yes.
Now in exile in Llandal.
Was he Minister of Information then?
He was. He was the Information Tsar. Yeah. I liked Moses and would work for him. And you know, we tried to sort out GTV. There is, as you know, a core problem in the government thinks that the state TV station should be fully supportive and doesn't. The BBC is not a state broadcaster. Not a state broadcaster. It's a public service broadcaster. It criticises the government all the time, as it should do. And the government would actually like to neuter the BBC. This is the latest book. You know, the government would actually like to have the BBC shrink because it's too critical of them. Freddie.
Well, let me introduce.
That's what published last week.
The Work of the Man. I will start with his latest publication. It's entitled, Who Do We Pay for the BBC After 2027?
How do we pay, Freddie? How do we pay for the BBC? The BBC is paid for by a licence fee by households of 150...
How do we pay for the BBC After 2027, edited by John MAIR, prefaced by Sir Peter Balzalgetti, afterward by Sir Anthony Seldon.
Here we are.
This is John Mair's latest book.
My 58th, Freddie.
His 58th publication. Let me read what the back page said. John MAIR is a former BBC producer. This is his 5th edited collection on the future of the BBC. He has edited 57 books in the last 15 years, mainly on media matter. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a journalistic icon in the studio. Morse, you know Inspector Morse?
Very well known in American TV and in British TV. It's all about Morse and Oxford. It's
Morse,
a guide.
Lewis and Devon, Oxford. After 4 decades, is this the end of the road? Edited by John MAIR. Now, we just have 2 of his 57 books, but we have The Man Never Stops. He edits since Guyana became an oil economy. He edits this journal, Oil El Dorado. This is the 5th edition in my hand here, and the latest edition right now, 2024. And he has been. These books are available each year at the Oil Conference.
But they're available on Amazon as well, Freddie.
And they're also available on Amazon. And if you want to purchase them, you have until tomorrow. Purchase personally from John MAIR. He leaves on Saturday, right?
No, I don't. I leave tomorrow afternoon.
He leaves tomorrow afternoon. So please call me at 614-5927, and I'll arrange for you to meet John to purchase this journal. Oil El Dorado. This is the latest.
El Dorado. Freddie, you're missed. It's not a journal. It's a collection of essays. It's got 30 essays in 30 essays by a wide variety of people, including you, including G.H.K. Lal, including academics, two university vice-chancellors in there, lots of analysts. So some of it's my work, but most of it is other people's work.
So it's a yearly collection of essays.
A yearly collection of essays, and they change every year. That one has 80% different to that one.
Okay. And it's 4,000 Guyanese.
And it's the best book on oil in Guyana, said he.
According to its editor, it's the best book on oil in Guyana. How do I feel about that statement? Yes, it is. If you're interested in the shape of oil to come, if you're interested in what is oil at the moment, and if it can save Guyana, if it can provide a future, what are the pros and cons, please buy John MAIR, Oil El Dorado. You're looking at the latest edition. This is the 5th edition. This is the 6th edition. And you can contact him on Amazon and get the previous edition. So, 57 books and more than 50 years in journalism. This is an honor to have such a journalist. But we have an hour, and I will rewind the tape to the 60s and ask him a sensitive question. John, did your parents leave because of the riots in the 60s?
No, we left before the riots.
The riots
left in 1960.
The riots started in 62.
No, they left in 60.
And
1960, 61, I was 11, so 61.
So next year the riots started.
So there were no riots. I mean, there were demonstrations against, there was an axe tax demonstration, you might remember. United Forces being formed, but there were no race.
That's a Calder budget, John.
Yeah, there were no race riots before. So, no, my parents left because my father changed his job and went to England. You know, he'd had enough of being an overseer on a sugar estate. He'd done whatever, from 39 till, so he'd done 32 years.
So you left in 61, and then you had the very bloody riots in 63 that...
I wasn't here. But
and there was the Wismar, what is called the Wismar massacre. Were your parents following what was going on in the country they just left?
Probably, I mean, before the internet, the only way you get news from Guyana is if a family member came with newspapers, which they'd have in their suitcase, fabric news, because there was no other way of following the news. You know, you need a physical newspaper. So, did they follow it? I suppose they did, yes, but not avidly, because everybody looks for a new life, don't they? They have to, I speak with an English accent. And the reason for that is because if you go into an English school playground and you speak with a Guyanese accent, you get beaten up.
Really?
Well, yeah. I remember when I was 9, we went on holiday to Worcestershire in the middle of England, and these kids in the playground said to me, "What language do you speak in British Ghana, British New Guinea?" I said, first of all, it's British Guyana. They said, "What language do you speak?" So I looked at this guy in the eye and said, "Same as you do here, broken English." And he didn't like that. But no, I mean, you acclimatise. Come on, I mean, we lived in Surrey, so we were quite London. And so, as happens with immigrants, my mother's family tended to congregate around where we were in Frimley and in Camberley. So there was a generation that moved to there, and in fact, as it happens tonight, my oldest cousin, who's 90, is dying in England
Tonight?
Yeah, but tonight she's in end of life care. But well, she's 90. She's had a good innings, but she's suddenly dead. So to answer your question, Freddie, yes, of course they keep in touch, and but my mother would send money back to my dreadful grandmother and people like that. But they not intimately keep in touch, but they did keep in touch, and people would come with news.
What do you mean? When your parents left, they left close relatives here?
Yes, of course. They left grandmothers, left sisters, their sisters, their brothers. Yes, of course. They left lots of.
I thought those were all British.
No, they weren't. My mother's Guyanese, so her family's Guyanese. People don't seem to understand this. My mother's family had lived in this country for 200 years. They lived here from the 19th century. My great-great-grandfather was a slave owner.
So your father met your mom.
My father met in Guyana. My father's Scottish. Was Scottish. He jumped off a ship and went to the Rupununi to be a cowboy.
Yeah, reminds me of Bob Marley father.
Well,
he was your dad was more stable. Bob Marley father abandoned him.
He was Irish, his father, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was Irish, I think. Yeah. No, my mother's family is Guyanese. You know, none of them here now, unfortunately. But you know, it was a big, wide family.
So, near what? What was her previous?
Vanier or Hutchinson. You might remember this old lawyer called Abraham Vanier. Too, no, and Hutchinson was on our mother's side, and the ancestry is interesting because about 4 generations back, they were Jewish as well. So there was a secret synagogue in Church Street where Walter Amsoy lived.
That house at the corner of Light and Church Street was a synagogue?
Synagogue. Cummings and Church Street. Church Cummings, I think. Cummings and,
it's Cummings?
And Church.
Either Cummings or Light, right.
But inside of there, inside, was a secret synagogue. And that's, I suppose, where they're worshipped. But it didn't come down to me because it came down through the mothers.
Well, I thought that you were born in Guyana to British parents.
No,
you were born in Guyana to a Guyanese woman.
Very Guyanese woman. When I was writing Bill Cotton, am I talking slowly enough for you, Freddie? When I was writing Bill Cotton, what's it, Hoyt? What was his first name?
President Desmond Hoyt.
Desmond Hoyt used to say, this man is an Englishman, he's terribly terrible. So all I would do was produce my birth certificate, which says Public Hospital, Georgetown, 18th of August, 1950. And he had to shut up at that point. You know, born here, went to school here, old Guyanese family.
Okay.
So yes, we did follow the thing, but you know, immigrants are concentrating on becoming where they are, where they've gone to, and you know, that's Britain, that's America.
Kirkash?
I was reading an article on the Oxford Mail.
Yes, I live in Oxford.
Yes, so, and I came across an article, and there was a statement that I read. Actually, it's a quote from you in that article, and it resonated heavily with me because it must have been life-changing in some ways. And I'll read to you what it says. It says, "I did my work for the BBC off and on for a number of years, and I was way down the food chain when Question Time was invented in 1979. For some reason or the other, whichever way that went, Question Time seemed to have been pivotal in your career."
Well, it was lucky. It was lucky. The BBC is not a pure organisation. This is the 79, the May 79 election. And Sir Robin Day, who was the great interlocutor of British television, they didn't know what to do with him during the general election. They had to find a job for him. So the producer I was working with invented Question Time, where we moved from Bristol to Birmingham to Manchester. We just got an audience, Robin Day, some politicians, and they answered questions. That's Question Time. So, you know, I did that, and then I continued working in current affairs, but not on Question Time after that.
But Question Time seems to have been, at that time, really something really different coming to the public.
It's still going.
Yes,
After
yes.
45 years now. It's still, because the best TV programs are the simplest. Absolutely simplest, you know. And the Guyanese need to understand that. And the Guyanese, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the Guyanese don't understand television. They understand radio. So I mean, I worked in a whole number of programs after that. World in Action, which is a very famous investigative program. Worked on Watchdog, another famous investigative program. I made documentaries. I kicked around for a long time. I worked in Northern Ireland, which was interesting, you know, during the Troubles.
Okay.
So you came back to work with the Guyana government after 1992, and your assignment was GTV.
My assignment was to try and sort out GTV.
And did you?
No.
And why?
Dismally failed. The old habits die hard. I mean, people had got used to a culture of non-work, or it's too difficult to do that. It was a Burnhamite institution. Alas, and it probably still is. I haven't been there for a long time, and they didn't have the discipline that a TV station involves. So it needed quite. As I said before we came on air, I invented 6 o'clock news, and the reason for that was because it's 6 o'clock. Simple as that.
And it's still 6 o'clock.
Still 6 o'clock. It used to be 20 to 7, 7 o'clock, 7:30. You know, you can't have a news program when you don't know where it is. You know, news at when. Mm-hmm. And so we got that off the ground. But there's lots and lots of pockets of resistance within places like GTV, and there's usually resistance to doing any work, sadly. And so, I mean, I probably isn't still sorted out now. You know, it's been
from 1992
to now,
2024.
It's feather bedded.
I can say that I have worked in some places where that is still the same.
In Guyana?
Up to now, yes.
Yes, and, you know, I'm sorry I didn't come to work because it was raining.
Yes, and even worse. Or more
Your curriculum vitae says you have worked with three Guyanese presidents. What was that work like, and what did you tell them?
I like Jagan. Jagan was an interesting man, very gentle. You know, he wanted me to be the director of television, and I think he offered it to me 5 times. I said no, thank you. I didn't fancy coming to live here, and didn't fancy that golden chalice. Jagan was a very straightforward man. Yeah. And I worked, maybe I worked for 4 of them. I also obviously worked for Jaglio. I wrote some of his speeches for him. And I worked for Janet Jagan. And maybe, I can't remember if I worked for Sam or not.
Sam Hines. Yeah. He had the presidency for 6 months.
Yeah, I don't think I did. You know, the president has a huge amount of power in this country. Massive amount of power. You know, if he says that, things happen. But I was saying earlier on, you have to rethink public broadcasting in this country. A state broadcaster should not be subservient, because people won't watch it. Simple as that. The BBC is not a state broadcaster. The BBC is a public service broadcaster, where the income is supplied by the public through a licence fee, and they expect the BBC to be down the line and impartial, not anti-conservative or anti-Labour, down the line and impartial. And the Conservative government now hates the BBC. They hate it because it's too independent. They don't like the fact, you know, they criticise them, or they find things that are wrong, and they find secrets. But that's tough.
Will you work for President Irfan?
If I'm not,
you're pretty young, so
I'm 74. Well, depends on what Irfan offered me. Look, I've said to both Irfan and to Barrett, I'd come and live for 3 months here and do some job, but no, not forever. No, I mean, Irfan is impressive because Irfan has all the social skills that Barrett doesn't have. Irfan is a great worker with people. Barrett is embarrassed. I saw him today, face to face. I saw him, and I saw him. He's always a bit gauche, you know, a bit uncomfortable with it all. And Irfan loves it. He laps it up, in my humble opinion. But does Irfan have the power? You know better than I.
Well, he's the president.
Does Irfan have the power? I said to somebody senior in the PPP about a year ago, how do they divide up what they do? And they said, oh, well, Barrett does oil and the economy. So I said, well, what else is there then? What else is there? So, no, I mean, what I did work with you, Freddie, during the election, the last election, I worked tirelessly with people like you and Joe Singh and others to stop the election being rigged. Because it was blatant, and it was disgusting, absolutely deplorable what was happening. Somebody said to me in London, the former High Commissioner's partner said, she said, the PNC will rig the election. I said 2 years before. I said, no, they wouldn't dare. And I saw her last week, and I said, you were right. I mean, it was horrible to see it happening. And also, I mean, as you continually say, the people who actually called it out were not the people who like to call lots of other things out. Yeah. You know, they kept silent.
Yeah. I know. I know you feel that way. I like. There is which one of these which one of these collections have the Mensheviks?
The Mensheviks, Morehouse Mensheviks.
Which
Yes,
one?
it's the sixth one.
It's this one.
This one.
Well, let's
The
see.
people who congregate around Moray House in Camp
Let's
Street.
see. Can you find that for me? Let me read the part that I found interesting.
Keep talking, Freddie.
Well, if I keep talking, I may distract you from.
No, you're all right. I can chew gum and fart at the same
Yeah,
time.
well, I like your point about the people who talk so much about other things did not talk about, and they're still talking.
Yes.
They're still talking about the environment. They're still talking about oil, but they haven't spoken about the election report.
No, the election rigging. It was rigging.
But I'm talking about the election report that was released in April last year. It's a damnifying document.
Well,
John, if you read this document, I wonder how people could not comment in that document.
No, they don't
The
want-
police would compromise, GCOM would compromise.
But Freddie, I mean, look, recently, Joe Singh, who declared an interest as a friend of mine, did a very good report on the Mahdia tragedy.
Yeah,
very good,
yeah.
very comprehensive, straight down the line, analytical, and people piled in on it. And I wrote, as you know, to Starbuck News and said, "This is disgusting. You're playing politics with dead children, you know, the lives of dead children, or the death of dead children." But there are too many people in our society who find something negative in the positive.
Yeah, and I like well, this Moray House Mensheviks Part 1 and Part 2, in which Part 2 you said that they have an agenda. It's more than just oil. Let's look. Here, I'm going to quote from your article.
Okay.
Many of the Moray House oil gas panelists do have specialist knowledge, but alas, they often bring an agenda. That varies from leave the oil in the ground to watch out for oil spills. So what will the native people get from oil? To corrupt politicians led astray by big oil and damage to turtles. If there are sores to be picked in the case for oil El Dorado, they will pick them.
The anti-oil tendency is interesting in this country because it is by and large bourgeois. You would say it's bourgeois, but
Of course.
But by and large bourgeois.
You call them the Mensheviks.
It's by and large comfortable bourgeois, and they're Mensheviks, you know, and there are people out of office, you know. There's Vince and Adams, and some, and they're always the same people there. Why don't they get a life and get a bit more positive about it? I mean, not everything is positive about oil. There's a big oil spill in Tobago at the moment. You know, off Tobago, where there's a ship which is coming to Guyana. Well, I think it's coming. Have you read about it today?
Well, they said it wasn't coming to get.
Well, it went to Venezuela to pick up oil, and then somehow ended up back there. And if you read something interesting, read Bellingcat. Bellingcat are people who track everything through satellites. Brilliant investigative journalists in Britain. There's a piece by them on the movements of that ship. They've actually been able to track it, I think, from last September, all the way through it, day by day by day. So it went to Venezuela. But no, what was it doing? It was smuggling, I think, as well. Smuggling oil, but also smuggling cocaine. But back to the Mensheviks, you know, Guyana has a lot to gain from oil, but the Guyanese people have to be convinced, and I'm not convinced the government does a good job of that yet.
Yeah, the PR thing is lacking.
Well, oil is out there to most.
But you're doing a good job for oil in this book. They should appreciate that.
Well, there's only 200 copies sold. You know, the government should give every high school student one of those, in my humble opinion. And let them, you know, because you dip into it. It's 30 chapters. Dip into it, you know, learn something rounded.
But you're not doing your PR. Kitnasi, you have a point. Sell the beauty of oil. Sell the beauty of oil that is contained in these 6 editions. And maybe you're right. The state should buy some of them and distribute them to the university.
Yeah.
Now, the man who could probably, 2 of the men you know, who could probably do that, are very well strategically placed. Your friend,
Kit Nascimento?
yeah, and presidential advisor on security.
Yes, and my friend Barrett Jagdeo and my friend Irfan Ali, they could all do it. I mean, they have got a lot of money. Now, why don't they use it to sell oil to the people? Because I don't think oil is out there to most people now. It doesn't mean anything to them. And it won't do until it trickles, when and if it trickles down to them. This is a 53% increase in GDP last year. 53%. Yeah? This is a booming economy until Maduro comes. And so the government has a lot of work to do, in my humble opinion.
Oh gosh.
John, I want to touch on something that I read when I read it today. It really warmed my heart. Well, of course, I read also about the your stance on the when they had the lockdown on the Walton Street.
Yeah, the low traffic neighborhood.
That's right. Yes. Is that barrier still up?
No. It was killed by utopianism.
Oh, okay.
As I got older, I'd become less enamored of utopian solutions. Briefly, the story is a big street in my neighborhood which passes through, and there was 2 big holes appeared. So the county council committee, led by a conservative from Zimbabwe, decided to leave the barrier down for a year to see what would happen. And instead of the community saying, let's do something with it, like I said they should have village fates on it. Some utopians actually wanted to tarmac it over and have a total, pedestrianised area. Now, the trouble with that is that you would actually stop any of the traffic from going to the posher part of the neighbourhood. But the shops complained, and they were probably right to complain. So the barrier came up, and it's now back to what it was. Because Freddie will know this as a sociologist, that there was a thing called a Cutter's Low Wall in Oxford. Do you remember this? No. There was a middle-class estate and a working-class estate next to each other, and the middle-class people built a wall. to keep the
they have many like that in the United States.
Keep them out. And it wasn't for that in the 20-30 years till the council knocked it down. But the trouble with the building this pedestrian thing is it was in the working class area, and it stopped the traffic from going to the middle class area. So it was effectively a wall. So low traffic. I did a thing a few weeks ago on low traffic neighbourhoods. They get people going. Mm-hmm. I mean, in Guyana, you have to think, what are you going to do with the car? Nobody thought probably it's just, let's throw all the cars on the road. It doesn't matter. Throw them on, all the metal, and doesn't matter about bad driving. Doesn't it? Just throw it on. When is somebody going to accept that actually what you need is rules of the road, lots of policemen, enforcing it, lots of policemen giving tickets and not being bribed, and people will learn. In Britain, we don't really drink and drive now. We don't. People have 2 pints and are lucky because they learnt 40, 50 years ago that if you're drunk and you drove, you lose your license.
Well, but here's the real. That was leading up to what I want to ask you, because just before the lockdown in coronavirus, you worked with the staff at Oxford Baptist Chapel to provide free shopping. But provide a free shopping bus for pensioners in the area, because there were no longer commercial services working there, and you would provide this. You had to help to provide this free service for pensioners to go and do their shopping and so on. But then coronavirus came, and then is that back up and running?
No. And the Baptist Chapel isn't. There's a nice little story. It's an old Baptist chapel, which an American evangelist took over, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. And it was, come to the mission, will you come, evangelism. And he came round to my house and told me that his function in life was to save Baptist chapels until they found something better during coronavirus. They had all the Baptist chapels, they bussed everybody to big tent, where they sang and so the Baptist chapel is now almost back to being disused.
Wow.
Because it essentially was used as a recruiting mechanism. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So no, I do an awful lot of things in the community. I run a thing called the MAIR Jericho, which once a week or so does a conversation with somebody well known or an issue and I'm running a thing in a few weeks' time in the local town square, where you have music.
Yes, I read that.
Music, beer, and sausages.
Yes.
And
It's like a street fair.
Like a street fair, but beside the canal is what it's used for. I'm organised. We live next door to an Oxford college called Worcester College, which has a wonderful garden. So once a year we go to the provost, the head of the college, and we use his garden with him. So we can have cucumber sandwiches on his lawn. Very nice.
When I read about the street fair today, and out there is music and food and all, people just having a wonderful time, I told myself, wouldn't that be a nice place to go and cover this event? So I'll be working towards that whenever the next one comes up.
Coming April the 20th, I think.
All right. Well, let's see how that works out.
You find it you find stuff in the Oxford Mail, because
Indeed.
Oxford Mail, like most local papers, is lazy and has no journalists.
Let's take the next 20 minutes to speak on your forte, the thing that you...
My 40?
Yeah.
I'm 74, Fred. I'm 40.
FORTE. Journalism. But before, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes in journalism.
Okay.
But just before that, I don't know, I hope we get you back next year, but just in case, tell us a little bit about your personal life. Did you marry a Guyanese woman?
No.
You married an English woman?
I've been married more than once.
Pardon me?
I've been married more than once. None
of the women were Guyanese?
No, my current wife is German. Half German, but she loves Guyana. She comes here frequently with me. She can't at the moment because her mother's very ill, but she enjoys Guyana. She enjoys the crack, and she treats it with the right degree of cynicism. So she takes it in. I mean, I went today and bought a stuffed alligator for my grandson.
That's by the post office?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Craft shops.
And a couple had a T-shirt. So I live in Oxford. I live in a very trendy part of Oxford called Jericho, which is a work.
The first wife.
First wife.
Quintessential English.
She got married again a couple of weeks ago.
She got married again a couple of weeks ago.
She got married. She was married to me a couple of weeks ago. She's a very rich woman. Maybe I made a mistake.
She's quintessentially English.
Very English. She's from the north of England. But my two sons from her are both English. Obviously, one of them has been to Guyana.
But you still have access to money?
No,
your children have.
They have access to money. I don't.
Yeah, well, they pass it on to you.
No, it doesn't work like that, Freddie. Well, one of them is a junior director of a bank, so he'll be all right. But this is probably when he goes out in Ghana, isn't it? Yes. My older son, the banker, has a lot of financial acumen, or is greedy. You decide which one. And he persuaded his mother to get married to her current partner in order to save death duties. He calculated it.
And she did that.
They saved £220,000 in death duties. She's very wealthy.
So she got married recently?
Last week before last.
Yeah.
So she married in while getting on in age?
She's 71, yes.
She's 71, and that's
as he's mentioning. No, but it becomes a necessity.
But that's our choice. It's nothing to comment about, and that's people's choice.
It saved her money, but it saved my older son a lot of money. £220,000.
So there are only two kids, the two boys.
The two boys, yes.
The two boys.
Both lovely boys. One is a teacher and one is a banker.
Well, let's move into journalism now, as we've got all the time left. We'll do journalism. John MAIR, one of the Caribbean's most enduring journalists and a man who's made a name for himself in his adopted homeland of the UK, worked for ITV, the BBC. Journalism in Guyana, and then journalism in the UK, and then journalism in the world. That's a tall order. Let's start first with Guyana.
Guyana's journalism is poor. It's poor. They take dictation and take it badly. It's poor. It's biased. It's I've just been at the oil conference for 3 days, and these poor kids are stuck like chickens in a battery hen behind their computers, watching the screens of what's coming out of the conference. They're not going to mix in with people, you know. Journalism is about talking to people and getting stories from them. Because people tell you stories. So they'll sit there and type it all out, and then it goes into the papers. But, you know, as you well know, two of the papers in this country are somewhat anti-government. Mm. I mean, when I saw the former president, he tried to persuade me to use a rude word about Glenn Lowell. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But and it hasn't got better in 30 years journalism. You know, I don't know why, but it just hasn't. There's no sort of huge pride in it. There's no proper editing as well, Freddie. You know, this won't come as a surprise to you. I think you should write 3 times a week, much more concisely, much more sharply, much more sub-edited. Read Trevor Phillips. Trevor Phillips writes in the Times on a Tuesday. Writes brilliantly, brilliant stuff. Curious old boy. You know, and he only does that one, but he does a TV program as well. But it's less is often better, in my view.
Now, journalism in the UK,
most of the papers are very right wing, way off right wing. I mean, you know, this badge says Daily Mail. I occasionally write for them. You know, I wrote a piece about Venezuela for them.
Yes. Oh yeah, you write for the Daily Mail, right?
Occasionally, if they pay me enough money, I'll do anything. You know, they're hopelessly right-wing. You know, the Mail, the Express, the Telegraph. You know, they hate the BBC. If they can find an anti-BBC story, they'll publish it. And I wrote to the editors of all 3 of them a month ago. I said, look, there's this very good book on the BBC with some very distinguished people talking about how to finance the BBC. Would you like to use them? No reply, only from the Times.
What would you say to the state-owned television, state-owned newspaper, here, and the Starbrook News?
What would I say to them?
Well, forget about the Culture News. You can't talk to Glenn now. What would you say to?
I would say to them, think of this word called objectivity. Think of this word called being straight. Think of impartiality. Think of the audience. You know, think of what the audience expects. And, you know, the audience doesn't want propaganda. The audience doesn't want anti-propaganda either. You know, if you want an informed audience, you have to give. You know, I was reading, as is my wont. I went across to Shantas this morning where they give me the papers, and I was reading them. And you know, the vast majority of the Culture News, and indeed of the Starbuck News, is letters. It's letters, huge long letters. Nobody edits them. You know that I write short, sharp letters, because if you can't make the point in a paragraph, what's the point? But you have these. When I read it on the internet, I go to the bottom of the letter and see who it is to decide whether I want to read it or not. And if I have to go down 3 pages, I usually don't bother. I read the last paragraph. You know, why are people allowed to write those mini essays? You know, just needs an editor to say, wham, wham, wham. This is the point it's trying to make. And nobody does that. And the young journalists, I mean, do they have pride? Do they have? The training doesn't matter, because all you need as a journalist is needs to have a nose. You need to, and I always used to say when I taught it, you need to have a sense of mischief. You have to feel that somebody's not going to like this. Somebody's not going to like this. And if you can be mischievous, do it, because you know. That's what you're there for. You're not there to be to kowtow to the government or to the industry. You're there to tell it as you see it, as you do.
Journalism in the US.
I don't really.
Fox News.
I don't really. My friend is Mark Thompson. He's still my friend, who went and sorted out.
Yeah. He's at the CNN.
He now sorted out.
But there were serious accusations of pro-Israel bias against him.
Well,
I wrote a column on that.
I saw it, but just in terms of what he did and what somebody needs to do, maybe in Guyana, is he arrived. He came from the BBC, where he was a very good director general, and what he did with the New York Times, he said, "There's a paywall. That is it. you can't have bits here, bits there. It's a paywall. You pay to read this newspaper, and that's how you save that newspaper. And somebody in Guyana ought to have the courage. I mean, the Stabroek News is neither fish or fowl. You read 2 paragraphs, and if you want to subscribe, pay 25 cents a day. I can't be bothered. I just read the 2 paragraphs. But journalism in America can be portentous. I read the New York Times physically on the plane across here. God, some of those articles are long, but they're very well researched. But there's no. They suck the life out of it by letting them go on too long, like the letters, When are the Guyanese papers going to get a letters editor? My friend used to be the letters editor of The Guardian. His job was to put red ink through lots of things, and it would make it much, much better. And the other thing about Guyanese journalism is they're not good at getting stories. They're good at issues. They're good at press conferences. But in terms of finding out Mrs. Bloggs who lives in Hadfield Street who's got some problem, they're not good at that. And good journalists who sit in pubs and listen to people and talk to people. In the street they talk to people. And out of that comes the post office thing in Britain, the sub postmasters who were all prosecuted by the post office. That came about because of one journalist who had the courage to keep going at it for years and years and years. Nick Wallace. And he didn't give up. He did it, and he did it in Private Eye and in other places, and then it became a TV drama, and wham, it's gone. So journalism is a noble profession, Freddie. We should treat it as that, shouldn't we?
Yeah, of course.
You're very lucky to do it, and you shouldn't. If you don't want to do it, go and find another job.
We're going out of time. Akash.
I've been working. I worked at the Chronicle from 2003, and you said you were there in 1993, which would have been 10 years after. But obviously, I was a very young man then when I went there.
Were you there in Sharif Khan's time?
Yes, I worked with Sharif Khan and Rashid Osman.
A good journalist, Sharif.
Yes. But recently, I have ventured into this aspect of journalism and presentations, which is through social media. What are your thoughts, and what advice would you give to people venturing into social media journalism?
Social media is a sewer. It's an absolute sewer, and it's an unregulated sewer. And my advice to people would be don't go into it, frankly. I mean, I don't really have a Facebook account. I don't have many other things because some of it is such nonsense. If you read the comments after a letter by mine and other people in the Stabroek, it's such nonsense, and it's the same pantomime of people. Same people, bang, and they go amongst each other. And back to Walton Street, when I was creating a fuss, somebody threatened me with death on social media.
Yes, I did say yes. And you reported.
Well, hang on. The police didn't investigate. I investigated. He turned out to be a man who imported Colombian coal. And he lived in Woodstock, Colombian coal being probably a euphemism.
Did he say that you wish you died from coronavirus or something like that?
He did, yes.
Yes,
right.
I did.
But he said coronavirus is too good for him.
But quickly, and I know, and then I'm going to over to Freddie. Look, unfortunately or fortunately, I would say from my perspective is that while the newspapers in Guyana are selling 2,000 and just under 3,000 newspapers, there are platforms in Guyana like the one we sit on right now, which is a social media platform that has a following of over 3. As a matter of fact, I did the calculations today across the platforms that this particular.
How many? 3 million, 300,000.
We have about 600, over 600,000.
Yeah, that's not. But you're a curated product. You see, you're actually thinking about it before you do it. Most of the stuff on social media is uncurated and it's nonsense. It's keyboard warriors at home. Bang, 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 bang.
So once done well, once done right, it should be a good product.
Any piece of journalism, if it's thought about, and if it has somebody between the journalist and the audience, that's important. I mean, the reason the BBC is good is because they have a person called a producer, and the producer doesn't decide, but he stands between the journalist and what goes out, and he can say, look, that's rubbish. We can't say that. And in Guyana you don't have producers. What's her name came yesterday? Stephen. the hard talk man came yesterday.
Sebastian.
No, not Sebastian. The guy who came yesterday.
From the BBC.
He came with a crew of 4. At least one of those was a producer. Who would be fixing, but also be saying, look, this is it. And the producers do all the hard work anyway. And certainly the BBC, they select the bits, they put the programme together. Usually, apart from in straight news. So, no, I mean, there's always room for something good in any form of media, and it shines out. It shines out if it's good. And believe me, and you have to go wade through an awful lot of chaff to get to that wheat. And I can't be bothered most of the time, frankly. I read Twitter some days, and I think, this is just an ego fest, and an ego fest of some very well-known people as well. Certainly in Britain. What my advice to you is, make sure it's good.
Yes.
Don't just put it out. Make sure it's good, because it's got your name on it.
Indeed.
You should always remember, things have got your name, his name, my name on it, and that can be held against you forever. This progress could be the end of my career, Freddie.
I'm sure it's not. You've been doing quite well. I'm sure when the powers that be look at it, you've been very objective, very intellectual. I don't want to. How do I say it? I think you, as a journalist, have done well on this program, and people should listen to you. After 55 years in journalism, why would someone not listen to you? I mean, anybody looking at your curriculum vitae would say, I want to interview this man. I'd like this man to advise me.
I've offered interviews on this, all of the 3 big papers in Guyana to NCN. Have I had a response? No. And I said, I'll come and talk about the book. Not one response, many of them. Including the Chronic, including the Daily Jagdeo, the Guyana Times, including the Culture and stuff. Not one response have I had. I said, I'll come and talk about the book, and why don't you run some extract from it in your paper, because some of this is well-written stuff which you normally have to pay a lot of money for, and you wouldn't persuade the people to do it. I mean, this book has 3 Knights of the Realm and professors and director generals in it. But now you need to ask yourself, why would the Guyanese media pick up on that? You know better than I. Why don't they like intelligent, good writing? G.H.K. Lal writes well, but he writes and he has his agenda. He swallows the dictionary, but he's still got the same attitudes.
Yeah, he has a political agenda. What's your prediction for Guyana?
In terms of what? Is he going to win the World Cup?
No, in a holistic way.
The government is there for 10 years, at least. No political party with that amount of money can lose an election. No political party. So they're there for 10 years. Irfan Ali should be there for 10 years, but the strange machinations of the PPP...
He can only be for 7. His term ends in 2030. We have
10 in total. 10 in 2 terms. Yeah. So whether you like it or not, suck it and see. There's a PPP government till 2030. Yeah? There's no way. And also, I mean, the opposition is not very good at the moment. I'm being very polite about them. They're just not a very good opposition. They don't. Oppositions have to propose something, and you can't be in opposition and just oppose. Why should I vote for you if you don't have a vision? I'm not going to vote. I don't like Jagdeo, so I'm going to vote for. You're going to vote for Norton. And I mean, the opposition at the moment is actually quite crass. I mean, it has some quite intellectual people in it, but there is an element of the street fighter about them, which is very sad. So that's my prediction. My prediction is oil will transform Guyana. It will transform it in, by and large, good ways. It will have to find a way of rewarding the common man through oil. I mean, but there are more cars on the roads than there were 5 years ago. So people are obviously getting money to buy the cars. And My prediction, by the way, is on Maduro. Don't poke a lion with a stick, because I don't think he's quite finished yet. However much you think of the Argyle Declaration and everything else, I think there could still be some form of skirmish.
But in the context of geopolitics, Exxon in here another 40 years, the United States, I think he's going to win the election. So he's going to.
Who is Maduro?
Maduro.
He doesn't know how not to win an election.
Right. So he's going to be there. Once he's there, there's going to be an American.
It's the Monroe Doctrine.
Right. So they're going to say they're not going to allow him.
Well,
to do
what are they going to do? Send warships, send aircraft? What are they going to do? I mean, somebody important said to me the other day that Maduro will only respect Guyana if he thinks there will be British or American troops, boots on the ground, if he does anything. So, I mean, you say they went to Lara.
But don't you think they will? I don't want to put boots on the ground, but don't you think they're going to be serious confrontational?
Well, how were the airplanes? Flyovers is what they've done. A drug ship come here. I mean, I don't know, but I know that any war with Maduro against the GDF will last about half an hour.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a big.
It's 100 to 1. 100 to 1. It's 450 to.
And I think that is what the world will not tolerate.
Well, Ukraine. Everybody said Putin can never invade Ukraine. He did, and he's going to win in Ukraine over the next 6 months.
Let's end on the note. A man who's been journalism for so long lives in an important country. Do you think Trump is going to win?
Yes, unfortunately.
Trump is going to win.
I think Biden has become almost unelectable. He's away with the fairies most of the time. And Trump is a vile, vulgar populist. And Americans like vile, vulgar populists. So I'm very sad to say Trump will win. Watch the chaos. Watch the chaos.
But if he does, there's going to be both internal chaos in the US and global chaos.
Global chaos.
Can the world survive Trump?
Probably not. But you see, Freddie, in every current war at the moment, we are one tactical nuclear weapon, again, away from oblivion. If one used in Ukraine or one used in Israel, wham, World War III.
Let's.
Have I depressed you?
No. Let's go. We're over time, but I just want quickly to get into you. You must, knowing your ideological position in politics, you're a liberal, you left liberal.
I'm probably centrist these days.
What's happening in Gaza, man? It's just.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't win a war and call it defense by obliterating the nation. I totally agree with that. Israel has gone mad, absolutely mad, and we must stop accusing people of anti-Semitism if they're objecting to Israeli things. They're objecting to Israel, not to Judaism. But I mean, they've forced people onto this beach in Gaza, and then basically bomb the beach, bomb hospitals. They won't kill they won't kill the idea of Hamas. So what they will kill is the population. So yes, I mean, I think the West and should say, actually properly say to Netanyahu, look, you do that, you're a pariah.
It was an experience talking to someone of your stature in journalism. I would like to. I know you visit your homeland quite often.
My motherland.
Can we do this again when you come back?
I'll try and come next winter, but it's February.
Indeed.
You try to come back when?
Next February. I'll try and come to the next World Conference.
Right. Okay. So we have a rendezvous.
A rendezvous, yes. Right. A rendezvous in this is not King. This is Queenstown.
Yes. I will check the comments to see if people understood your accent.
I will speak very slowly.
You did. Thanks for being here, man.
That's all right, Freddie. Right. Freddie, but you keep up your good work, but look for an editor.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Are we done?
We're done.
You gotta go through.
I don't know where the operator is.
He's waiting for you.
Okay, thanks for being with us. Our guest this evening, we hope you enjoyed 1 hour of a very, very experienced man and one of the Caribbean's most experienced journalists and one of the experienced journalists in the UK, John MAIR, Guyanese born. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you on Friday. We do have a program on Friday. Catch you later. Bye-bye.